He Shu's old illness relapsed, and he was beyond cure. At his sickbed, he held the imperial consort's hand in one and the crown prince's in the other, his eyes full of reluctant attachment. I was the Empress, yet I felt like an outsider. After a long while, he finally turned his gaze to me, his expression complicated. "If there is a next life, as long as you don't make things difficult for Aryan, I'll still grant you the position of Empress, never to be shaken." I felt no joy at all, and even feared the vow would come true. After the funeral ended, I donated a large sum of incense money to the temple, praying to be strangers in the next life, but things didn't go as wished. I returned to my hairpin ceremony year, and also met him. Cold rain hit my face, icy and cool, making one sober, yet also dazed. He Shu held an umbrella. "Even though it is just a light rain, you should be careful. Don't catch a cold." His face was handsome, much younger than in my memory. His words were gentle, without a trace of hatred or dislike. I suddenly froze in place. Memories were chaotic, layering one upon another in my mind, as if I had a dream. In the dream, I was a prince's consort for 2 years, then an empress for 8 years. As a prince's consort, my husband cherished me deeply, and everyone envied us. As empress, not only did the emperor and empress fall out, but I was also overshadowed everywhere by the imperial consort, whom he Shu endlessly doted on, unable to catch my breath. After finally hoping for his early death, I specially invited a master to perform rituals, praying to never meet in the next life. Never expected that upon starting over, the first person I'd meet would be him. The umbrella tilted toward me, blocking the rain outside, but the sudden warmth on my body was replaced by a bone-chilling cold, and I couldn't help but shiver. This was the second day after my coming-of-age ceremony. On the way back to the capital after burning incense at the temple, I encountered He Shu. He held an umbrella for me and took the opportunity to express his feelings. In my memory, I had agreed to his promise of a lifetime together and was overjoyed for a very, very long time. I never imagined that this was the beginning of my descent into the abyss, suppressing the shock, sorrow, and mixed emotions in my heart. I stepped back 2 paces and stood in the rain again. The rain fell on my face, washing away some of the bitterness and resentment from the dream. Meeting He Shu's surprised gaze, I spoke slowly. "I thank your highness for your affection, but given our different statuses, sharing an umbrella may invite gossip and tarnish your highness's reputation." This is the moment the script flips in her past life. This umbrella was a shelter for love. In this life, she sees it for what it is, a trap. By using propriety to reject him, she uses the very rules of their world to build a wall he cannot climb. It's polite, it's proper, and it's absolutely devastating. She denies him the one thing his ego craves, her gratitude. The suspense here is delicious. We watch the princess' confusion as his guaranteed conquest walks away into the rain, washing herself clean of their past. His expression showed no change, only a slight movement at the corner of his eye, revealing a hint of confusion and displeasure. I thought our hearts were in accord. Had it not been for the dream, I would have thought the same. But the truth was, he loved another. He had hidden her in the shadows for years, only revealing her to the world after ascending to power. Marrying me was for my father and brother's influence, and also to make his beloved's situation safer. I suppressed my resentment and tried my best to remain calm. Looking up, my gaze was drawn to a carriage not far away. The carriage was understated, yet exquisite, bearing the insignia of He Shu's princely residence. A woman was lifting the carriage curtain with one hand, looking outward. The curtain of rain obscured my vision, making it hard to see her expression clearly. I could barely make out her face. Lu Yun, the one He Shu had hidden in his heart, the imperial consort who had been at odds with me for years. After He Shu seized power, he insisted on making Liu Yun an imperial consort, despite opposition from both the court and the harem. I advised him that a palace maid of lowly birth being made consort without bearing children would invite criticism. Better to first grant her the rank of noble lady and promote her later once she had an heir. He Shu immediately furrowed his brow, staring at my belly that had yet to show for a long while before speaking. I thought the Empress was magnanimous and wouldn't make things difficult for others. I have always respected the Empress. I merely have a selfish wish to show some favoritism to the one I love. Can the Empress not grant me even this? His voice was the same as always, lacking even his usual authority. Yet I felt as if pierced by freezing ice, chilling me to the bone. My mind was in chaos. I couldn't make sense of what he meant even after a long while. Once, he was a prince with several secondary consorts and concubines, and I had always treated them well. Now, he was the emperor, and there would be even more consorts. I had long anticipated this. But I had always believed that I was different from them. I was his wife, connected to him heart and soul, the wife he had personally promised to grow old with, to treat with sincerity, and never betray. And now I was learning from his own mouth that he had another woman he loved. The Empress was born into a noble family, and would be the main wife no matter who she married, so naturally she doesn't understand her suffering. I don't expect you to understand her. I only hope the Empress does her duty and doesn't make things difficult for her. I will have her live farther away so she won't be an eyesore to the Empress. Anjia Palace would be nice. What does the Empress think? Jiangjia Palace was a palace the late emperor built specifically for his favored consort, exquisite and luxurious, not inferior to Weiyang Palace where the Empress resided. I was stunned for a long time, unable to collect myself. 3 months after Liu Yun entered the palace, she became pregnant. He Shu brought her to see me for the first time. At that time, I was 5 months pregnant. Since I had already heard the news, I was neither surprised nor sad. But Liu Yun's eyes reddened because of my attitude. She didn't say a word, just glanced at my belly, then touched her own belly, and looked at He Shu with grievance, tears at the corners of her eyes, on the verge of crying. He Shu's expression changed immediately. He held Liu Yun and returned to the palace, leaving me standing there alone, becoming a joke among the palace servants. That night, my mind was restless. After barely falling asleep, I was awakened by abdominal pain. By the time the imperial physician arrived, the child had already become a pool of blood. He Shu's fury was exactly the same as when I had my first miscarriage at the prince's residence. His face so twisted, he looked ready to kill. Back then, I thought his anger was out of heartache. Heartache for the child. Heartache for me. Now that I know of Liu Yun's existence, I dare not think that way anymore. I insisted on investigating the truth behind the miscarriage. After all, with the experience from last time, I was extra careful this time. The imperial physician also said the pregnancy was stable, with nothing amiss. How could I miscarry just from staying up late once? Gu Shu was silent for a long while, then agreed. But after investigating thoroughly, nothing unusual was found. Only the imperial physician who had been caring for my pregnancy left behind a handwritten letter and committed suicide out of guilt. He said my pregnancy had been unstable all along, but he didn't dare speak plainly for fear I would blame him. Now, knowing his concealment had cost the prince's life, he could only atone with death. I didn't believe it and wanted to investigate further, but was coldly refused by He Shu. Empress, the imperial physician has already confessed. That is the truth. How long do you intend to keep making a fuss? Do you really want to turn this entire harem upside down? He said I had gone mad and needed to calm down. So he confined me to my quarters. It wasn't until my father and brother returned triumphant from the war that I regained my freedom. And it was then that I learnt the truth. The sky was clear and bright as I admired the flowers in the courtyard. Liu Yun, supported by palace servants, walked up to me. "Blessings to Her Majesty, the Empress." She spoke in a soft, delicate voice, barely rose to her feet, then settled back comfortably onto her stool. She was already 9 months pregnant. I didn't want to clash with her, but she wouldn't let it go, insisting on blocking my path. After a long standoff, she laughed triumphantly. What good is it that the Empress has her father and brother as backing? All I had to do was put on a fake crying act, and a shoe made the Empress lose her child. If Her Majesty the Empress were to cause me to go into premature labor, how long do you think you could keep sitting on that throne? With that, she closed her eyes and fell backward. When He Shu came over, he happened to see Liu Yun falling backward, but before he could save her, a shrill scream pierced the sky, startling all the birds in the trees. Liu Yun's face instantly turned pale, her twisted, agonized expression filled with disbelief. She had calculated that He Shu would come and was certain he would make things difficult for me on her behalf. But she hadn't calculated that He Shu would arrive a step early, and the palace maid arranged to catch her had to perform a kneeling salute, and had now taken advantage of the chaos to disappear without a trace. Scream after scream, each louder than the last, making one's heart tremble. The imperial physician was terrified, declaring that only 100-year-old spirit herb could be used in medicine to have any chance of keeping both mother and child safe. The spirit herb was something my father and brother had found for me at the border. He Shu asked me for it. I didn't refuse, nor did I agree. I just pointed at a clay pot not far away and slowly said, "The spirit herb is already gone." The spirit herb had already been mixed with bran and wheat chaff to make porridge, distributed to the cats, dogs, and birds in the palace. Even the birds at Jiangxia Palace got a full basin. Shen Ningxi, you knew full well that a Yun needed the spirit herb. He Shu was furious, kicking and shattering the clay pot of porridge in the courtyard. He looked at me as if looking at an enemy. "Your Majesty should have asked this concubine earlier." This concubine lost 2 children and thought it was due to insufficient merit. Seeing the stray cat in the courtyard bleeding heavily during birth, I wanted to show some kindness and save its life, to accumulate some merit for my dead children, and pray that they might be reborn in my womb. Oh, the exquisite pettiness of this moment, when her rival Liu Yun desperately needs a life-saving herb. Ningxi doesn't destroy it or hide it. She feeds it to stray cats. It is the ultimate insult. She values a stray cat's life over the woman who ruined hers, and her excuse, accumulating merit. It is unassailable. She uses the language of piety to deliver a death sentence. It's a masterclass in passive-aggressive warfare that leaves the emperor furious but powerless. I calmly set the clay pot upright and beckoned the startled birds to return to the courtyard. The imperial consort's pregnancy was personally watched over by Your Majesty, and no one else was ever allowed to inquire about it. This concubine truly did not know such an accident would occur. There is still some porridge mixed with bran left in the kitchen. Perhaps Your Majesty could ask the imperial physician if it can be used. Perhaps because the children were mentioned, most of He Shu's anger dissipated. However, the emperor's dignity could not be challenged. He confined me to my quarters on charges of poor palace management and sent me back to Weiyang Palace. A day and night passed. Liu Yun exhausted all her strength and delivered a stillborn. Her body was damaged as a result, making it difficult for her to conceive again. He Shu was furious, punishing all the palace servants and giving Liu Yun much consolation. He still favored Liu Yun, but no longer doted on her alone. He wanted children and favored many concubines in succession. Liu Yun hated me even more. When He Shu was on his deathbed, she even suggested that I be buried with him. Unfortunately, my father and brothers were still alive, and He Shu didn't dare. The rain curtain gradually thinned, meeting Liu Yun's gaze. I could clearly see her expression. Unconcealed provocation and resentment, bearing no resemblance to the pure kindness he Shu spoke of. Her showing malice so early reminded me of many things from when I married into the prince's manor. I enjoyed sword dancing and archery. When he Shu wasn't at the manor, I often invited friends over for small gatherings to practice and exchange skills. The equipment at the training grounds was supposedly inspected daily, yet every time I needed to use them, the swords I drew were either flawed or simply broke. The archery targets were either incomplete or fell off, for no reason, ruining the mood. I'm allergic to peaches and never touch them, but even after giving specific instructions, I still ended up eating peach-flavored pastries many times, breaking out in rashes over and over. When he Shu found out, he would thoughtfully apply medicine for me and scold the servants. Yet he never punished anyone for it. I'm afraid of thunder, especially on rainy summer nights, when the torrential rain and thunder tear open streaks of daylight across the sky. I wanted he Shu to stay with me, but on those days, he Shu usually had matters to attend to, and I could only panic alone until dawn. Too many coincidences I suspected someone was targeting me, and I doubted he Shu's sincerity. But just then, I became pregnant. He Shu was even happier than I was, and spent more and more time with me, yet, after only 3 months, the child turned into a pool of blood. When he Shu heard the terrible news, he seemed possessed, his eyes blood red, wanting to kill everyone. Because I held him back, he calmed down slightly. He sold off the servants who had been looking after me and tore down the corridor where it happened, and only then did the matter come to an end. The truth behind the second miscarriage was uncovered, and belatedly, I went to investigate the truth of the first one. Only then did I learn that the servants who were sold off from the prince's residence had become dead souls the moment they left. He Shu's grief was fake, and erecting a memorial for the child was also fake. Everything was just a play he put on to cover up another woman's crimes. I withdrew my gaze and looked at he Shu again. In the past, I was young and may have overstepped boundaries. I hope your highness will forgive me. Now that this humble daughter has come of age, my father and brothers have begun arranging matches for me. I can no longer interact with your highness as I did before. You're going to get engaged to someone else? Anger finally appeared on he Shu's face. Disregarding propriety, he grabbed my arm. The more I struggled, the harder he gripped. Your highness, please conduct yourself with dignity. I flung my arm hard and finally broke free from his restraint. This humble daughter will marry in the future, so naturally I must get engaged first. He Shu's brows furrowed with even more anger, yet he said nothing more. His gaze was dark and gloomy, sending chills down one's heart. I didn't want to get entangled with him and excused myself to leave. A smile suddenly appeared on his face, full of hidden meaning. If that is the case, allow me to congratulate Miss Shen in advance on finding a good match. I'd like to see who would dare marry the daughter of a general's household that commands a mighty army other than the royal family. The rain suddenly intensified, pouring down in torrents. He tossed the umbrella aside and turned to leave with large strides. The sound of hooves faded into the distance. He Shu's figure disappeared at the city gate, yet Lu Yun's carriage remained stopped not far away. Her eyes were full of confusion, her gaze still fixed on my face. Soon the confusion turned into smug delight. I suddenly felt pathetic. If she also had the memories from my dream, she definitely wouldn't dare look at me like that. For now, I had no intention of bothering with a maidservant I hadn't yet crossed paths with. When I returned to the general's manor, my brother was waiting for me at the gate. Seeing that I'd been caught in the rain, he frowned with worry. The third prince sent back the people who were supposed to pick you up, saying he'd come get you himself, and he let you walk back in the rain. As he spoke, my brother raised his umbrella over my head, letting half of his own body get soaked in the rain. In the dream, father intended to relinquish his military power and enjoy his retirement. My brother was injured on the battlefield and could no longer practice martial arts, wanting to abandon the military for scholarly pursuits. But after I married he Shu for my sake, and to give me something to rely on, they resolutely insisted on staying to guard the border. Father as the commanding general, my brother as the military strategist. When he Shu died, they returned to the capital to pay their respects and helped me become the Regent Empress Dowager with real power in hand. Originally, father and my brother could have lived peacefully in the capital, but war broke out again at the frontier, fierce and aggressive. For the stability of my court, they once again chose to go to war. In the years that followed, we often exchanged letters, but rarely saw each other. In the final great battle, father and my brother won 30 years of peace for the frontier, but they never came back. The last time I saw them was their corpses, already unrecognizable. Seeing my elder brother young again, I couldn't help but feel my nose sting, nearly shedding tears. Brother thought he Shu had bullied me and wanted to confront him on my behalf. I hurriedly grabbed him, explaining anxiously, I rejected his marriage proposal. That is why he abandoned me. Brother was stunned, looking at me with an unfamiliar yet pleasantly surprised gaze. Have you really thought this through? Brother seemed in disbelief. In your last letter you said you wanted father to agree. I've thought it through. Marrying into the imperial family means endless scheming and plotting. Better to marry an ordinary man, live in harmony as husband and wife, devoted to each other, passing peaceful days. I looked into brother's eyes and said earnestly, for my marriage, let father and brother help me decide. Brother was overjoyed, and soon sent over the matchmaking album he had already prepared. I cooperatively opened it, and the portrait on the first page immediately caught my attention. Those familiar brows and eyes seemed to speak, telling of the days and nights he spent by my side after he Shu's death. In my dream, he returned to the capital with father and brother for the morning, requesting to resign from his general position, seeking a leisurely post that would let him stay by my side. The world rumored that for power, he didn't hesitate to serve with his beauty, becoming my male consort. He was skilled in both literature and martial arts, a rare talent. I didn't want him to be scorned by civil officials and disdained by military generals, ruining his bright future. So I urged him to leave. For this reason, I had the idea of selecting a real male consort, attempting to completely end his feelings for me. But I never expected that the person sent into the palace as a male consort would be him. Draped in thin clothing, his collar half open, revealing defined lines on his delicate face. The corners of his eyes were slightly red, showing a hint of vulnerability that made one's heart ache. His body bore some scars from battlefield combat, adding a touch of ruggedness that commanded respect. I was captivated. A moment of stolen pleasure. My earlobes turned red, which didn't escape my brother's notice. Among these people, father and I both hope you'll interact more with Xiaohui. I've returned to the capital for my duty report, and he is back too. How about I invite him over tomorrow? No need. I guiltily closed the album. My brother thought I had no interest in Xiaohui. He opened his mouth but said nothing more, gesturing for me to continue looking at the others. If he is willing to marry me, let him prepare for the wedding. The sooner the better. I returned the album to my brother and pushed him out the door, my face flushed. My brother's gaze shifted from surprise to confusion, then to scrutiny, as if he had countless questions to ask. I confessed on my own, Brother, do you believe people can dream of their past lives? My brother was puzzled. I continued, I had a very strange dream. I dreamed of he Shu and Xiaohuai's entire lives, and I also saw my own heart clearly. He Shu was attentive, pursuing me for many years. As time went on, I mistook habit for genuine feelings. This habit allowed me to stay rational and be his proper wife, but it couldn't make me truly treat him as a sincere and devoted husband. Once the cracks between us were discovered, We could only become strangers. But Xiao Huai is different. I paused, not knowing how to describe this difference. Xiao Huai only approached me after He Shu's death. At first I was surprised, then delighted, and later came a bit of unease. After all, our statuses were different, and I didn't want him to be gossiped about. I always told myself, just one last indulgence, then I'd send him away. But time after time, I couldn't bear to let go. Looking back, many years had already passed. My brother didn't press me on what was different, nor did he notice anything unusual about me. He just patted my head. Silly girl, there is no such thing as a past life. You dream what you think about during the day. You have reservations about He Shu, so you dreamed he was a heartless man, giving yourself the courage to break things off with him. As for Xiao Huai, ever since he came to our family when you were little, you said he was good-looking and always liked clinging to him. If he hadn't gone to the battlefield so early, and you two hadn't rarely seen each other these years, and if he weren't so bad at expressing himself, would He Shu even have had a chance? The way he looks now, he is no less than He Shu. That you have feelings for him isn't very surprising to your brother. I pouted and protested that I wasn't just looking at faces. My brother held back his laughter and said nothing, ruffling my hair once more before turning to leave. His footsteps stopped outside the corridor. Through the window, I curiously looked outside and saw Xiao Huai standing beyond the courtyard. His young, innocent face gradually overlapped with the one in my memories. Real yet illusory. Since you're already here, don't just stand there like a fool. Come in. My brother spoke. Xiao Huai stepped into the courtyard, and I lifted the curtain and walked out as well. His earlobes were slightly red, his eyes shimmering with tiny specks of light. When our gazes met, his face instantly turned completely red. My brother looked at me, then at him. He walked up to him, pulled the now crumpled document from his grip, and patted his shoulder. I suppose you heard what Xia said just now. If there is anything you want to say it all clearly today. He nodded, watched my brother leave, then looked at me again, still flustered, still blushing. The Xiao Huai in my dreams was always calm and composed, as if everything was under his control. Even when he learnt I was going to choose a male consort, his expression only changed slightly before he schemed his way into my bed. I had never seen him like this before. A mischievous urge instantly arose in me. I had wanted to say, Xiao Huai, you're even more handsome than when you were little. But he didn't have the memories from my dream, and I was afraid it would sound too absurd and scare him off, so I thought I'd greet him first before asking about his true feelings. Yet unexpectedly, what came out of my mouth was, Xiao Huai, will you marry me? Here, the tragedy officially becomes a romance. She doesn't wait for the universe to give her a happy ending. She grabs it by the collar. By proposing to the man who loved her silently in her past life, she breaks the cycle of waiting and suffering. She chooses the male consort over the emperor, the shadow over the sun. It's a bold, modern move in an ancient setting. The tension melts into pure joy as we realize she isn't just escaping her nightmare, she is actively building her dream. Xiao Huai stood frozen in place, stunned and speechless. I suddenly felt awkward. Just as I was looking for a way out, Xiao Huai shed his flustered demeanor and spoke solemnly. I'm willing to take you as my wife. For a lifetime, I will never betray you. His expression was so earnest that I felt dazed again. In my dream, he had promised me, even if I bear infamy for eternity, I am willing to stay by the Empress Dowager's side, to be the sharpest blade, until I die. He had done even more than he promised, and done it even better. Miss, I'm not good with words. Seeing my sudden tears, Xiao Huai instantly became flustered and hurriedly tried to explain. I burst out laughing with a PFF'd, stopping my tears, and only then did the panic in his eyes slightly recede. I'm not crying because of what you said. Naturally, I couldn't tell him the real reason either, so I changed the subject. How long will you stay in the capital this time? Originally, I was to return to the border in 7 days. He lowered his eyes in thought, then raised his head a moment later, his gaze clear. Now, however long Miss wants me to stay, I'll stay. I'll write to the general today to explain, then petition the emperor for his permission. What if I asked you to stay with me for a lifetime, giving up your future entirely? Would you still be willing? I asked teasingly. He answered without hesitation, yes. My heart suddenly stirred, and the events from my dreams surfaced before my eyes once more. This time, he wouldn't have to endure the criticism anymore. I was just joking. Marrying me will only make your future better, and it definitely won't ruin your prospects. His lips moved slightly, but before he could speak, I stopped him. Xiao Huai, since you've decided to marry me, you'll have to listen to me from now on. All right. His eyes were bright, a smile at the corner of his lips, joy overtaking his nervousness, showing a familiar look from my dreams. Early the next morning, the matchmaker came to formally propose. After matching our birth characters and exchanging betrothal gifts, the wedding date was set for early spring next year. By then, Father would return to the capital to report on his duties and preside over our wedding. After everything was settled, my brother returned to the border while Xiao Huai stayed behind. With the Emperor's permission, he temporarily served in the city defense camp, with his assignment to be decided after the wedding. Every day after his shift, he would make his way to the general's residence to see me. Sometimes he'd bring street snacks, sometimes little novelties. Every rest day, he would spend the whole day with me, archery, boating on the lake, whatever I wanted to do, he never refused. As we grew closer, I increasingly felt I had wronged the gods and Buddha. This second chance wasn't a tribulation, it was fulfillment. On this day, Xiao Huai and I were riding horses outside the city. Against the wind, the horses galloped swiftly. He always stayed half a step behind me. He was the same in my dreams, saying that riding fast was risky, and staying behind allowed him to notice anything unusual first and protect me. I wanted to ride alongside him, so I pulled the reins to slow down. But he seemed able to predict my predictions, always making the same choice as me. I refused to accept it, pretending to be annoyed as I called his name. While his attention was diverted, I threw off the reins, stepped hard on the saddle, and jumped onto his horse. Now, facing the same excuse, the same approach, I felt helpless yet amused. So I had no choice but to use the same old trick, jumping onto his horse, sitting in his embrace, our eyes meeting. 28-year-old Xiao Huai, after a moment of surprise, pulled the reins tight and domineeringly kissed my lips. Afterward, he didn't forget to say, "Consider this interest for the risk. The rest I'll collect tonight." By then, we had already been intimate many times. I wasn't surprised by his actions. Only after he said those words, thinking of his insatiability, did I feel a slight regret. 18-year-old Xiao Huai froze on the spot, nearly dropping the reins. Afraid I'd fall off the horse, he held me tightly, yet afraid of being too forward with me, wanting to loosen his grip, but not daring to. His cheeks gradually reddened, his gaze flustered and lost, inexplicably alluring. The sound of hooves grew softer, the surroundings grew quieter, so quiet that only Xiao Huai's nervous heartbeat remained. I couldn't help but act like a lecher for once. I lifted my head and kissed him, restraining myself to just a brief touch before pulling away. Our eyes met, and I fell into a pair of eyes shining with burning brilliance. He lowered his head and covered my lips with his, so inexperienced and without any technique. Just as I was about to take back the initiative, I heard a piercing sound of wind, as if an arrow was coming. Opening my eyes and glancing sideways, I saw an arrow in Xiao Huai's hand, mere inches from both our faces. The arrowhead had grazed his palm, blood dripping from it. I looked around in panic and spotted Hishu standing not far away. His expression was ferocious, filled with disgust and fury. I had seen such eyes many times in my dreams. Xiao Huai was furious, his hand gripping the arrow, turning pale, yet he couldn't lash out due to Hishu's status as a prince. I carefully pried open his hand and did a simple bandage with my handkerchief. Seeing me act so intimately with Xiao Huai as if no one else existed, Hishu grew even more enraged. He drew another arrow and shot it at us. Xiao Huai tried to shield me, but I stopped him. The arrow just now wasn't that fast. He didn't dare take our lives. Meeting Hishu's hateful gaze, I spoke calmly. I didn't know your highness was practicing archery here. I apologize for disturbing your enjoyment. We'll leave now. Hishu didn't lower his bow, I added. On the 8th day of the first month next year, my husband and I will be wed. Your highness is welcome to attend the ceremony. Before I finished speaking, the anger in Hishu's eyes instantly subsided, yet his gaze remained fixed on me. As I rode past him, a chilling aura pressed down on me, making me shudder. I was certain Hishu had also come back. Just as we returned to the residence, a sudden downpour fell, instantly soaking the ground. By nightfall, the rain hadn't stopped at all. Thunder had started rolling in. Lightning tore through the sky with the thunder, and Hishu's face suddenly flashed in my mind. In my dream, Hishu betrayed me, and I took my revenge. In this life, I don't want anything to do with him anymore. I never expected he would come back too. With his personality, he won't give up on the general's manor, and he definitely won't let me go. A deep sense of helplessness washed over me. Suddenly, I really missed Xiao Huai. I couldn't wait any longer. I got out of bed and ran to the outer room. Today, with the thunder and rain, he knew I was scared, so he stayed at the manor to keep me company. He was sleeping in his clothes. Hearing me stir, he got up anxiously and lit a lamp. I didn't care about anything else and threw myself into his arms. Xiao Huai, can we move up the wedding? The candlelight was dim, shining into his eyes. There was joy and also confusion. But he didn't ask why, just nodded in agreement. All right. Today, after saying that, I kissed him on the lips. He kissed me back, but held my hands tightly, not letting me move around. After a long while, he finally let go, his voice slightly hoarse. It is not proper. You promised you'd do whatever I say. Tears instantly welled up in my eyes. I couldn't tell if I was truly upset or just wanted to act spoiled with him. We're not even married yet, and you're already going back on your word. He was speechless, his eyes filled with bewilderment and panic. I didn't want to wait until I was 28 again. With only half a lifetime of happiness, I want the rest of my life to be complete. Husband, I want to try. I softened my tone even more, and my actions became bolder. Xiao Huai's gaze clearly changed. While he was dazed, I tiptoed again and wrapped my arms around his neck. When I woke the next day, it was already past noon. Xiao Huai sat by the bed, surprised yet nervous. The events of last night flooded into my mind instantly. Even with the memories from the dream, my face still heated up uncontrollably. Seeing my reaction, a hint of shyness appeared in Xiao Huai's eyes. He held a piece of paper in his hand, a newly calculated auspicious date. The 8th of next month in my dream. This was the day I married Hishu. The crown prince was assassinated on his way to observe the ceremony, fell gravely ill, and never recovered, passing away a year later. Hishu became the most favorable heir to the throne. Another year passed, the emperor passed away, and Hishu ascended the throne. I once only wished for Hishu's well-being, now thinking about it. Perhaps Hishu was also a player in the scheme. Is there something wrong with this date? Huai asked, doubtfully. This is the nearest auspicious date. If you find it unsuitable, we can look at other dates. Hearing this form of address, I immediately snapped back. Ever since I called him husband for the first time yesterday, he seemed to have become addicted to it. Throughout the night's ups and downs, he coaxed me to call him that countless times. Now my voice was hoarse, barely able to speak. I shook my head, gesturing for him to come closer. Once he sat closer, I slowly spoke. Husband, do you trust me? No matter how absurd what I'm about to say sounds, will you still trust me? Soon, the wedding day arrived. Father couldn't return to the capital, so my elder brother rushed back to see me off for the marriage. The red bridal procession stretched for 10 miles, grandly departing from the general's manor, heading to the Shao manor. Halfway through the journey, a commotion arose outside. Just as I was about to check, I felt the sedan chair jolt violently. I stumbled and fell, hitting my head on the sedan beam, instantly losing consciousness. When I woke up, I was already in the bridal chamber. My hands were bound, unable to move. His shoe wore wedding attire, his expression cold and stern. He gripped my chin, full of obsession. Ningxi, we had an agreement. How could you break your word? Fortunately, I returned in time and could still snatch you back. He leaned down to kiss me. I turned my head to dodge, but he tightened his grip, making my bones ache. Hishu, you personally requested the imperial marriage decree, marrying on the same day as me. So this was your plan all along. Abducting a minister's wife is a serious crime. If the emperor finds out, so what if he finds out? I'm merely putting things back on track. He cut me off, his eyes full of triumph. I am the emperor, and you are the empress. This is destiny, and it cannot be changed. His voice was loud, completely unrestrained. The crown prince's incident, was that really your doing? I pressed further. What does Ningxi think? He seemed still guarded and didn't answer directly. The Empress treated you like her own son, and the Crown Prince treated you like his own brother. When the Crown Prince died from his severe injuries, the Empress passed away from grief. You were devastated, it didn't look fake to me, I replied calmly. The smugness on Hishu's face deepened, and the hand gripping my jaw loosened slightly. Distinguishing truth from lies is meaningless. What matters most is that the outcome is as I wished. He leaned down again, and I dodged again. But I just want to know, is it true? Seeing my persistence, Hishu fell silent. I continued. Did you kill the Crown Prince? Were you involved in the Empress's death? You let Liu Yun target me at every turn. Was it because you truly loved her deeply? Or were you wary of my father and brothers, using her as a scapegoat? Hishu stared at me for a long time, then scoffed and slowly spoke. Ningxi is indeed a clever person. Since you already know, I won't hide it from you anymore. There was a guard by the Crown Prince's side. He was my man. When the Crown Prince was attacked, he pretended to protect him, but actually stabbed him. The poison on the blade wasn't immediately fatal. It would only fully take effect a year later. When the poison struck, naturally no one would suspect me. The Emperor and Empress doted on the Crown Prince and never considered anyone else to inherit the throne. Crown Prince's fatal injuries were enough to exhaust them mentally and physically. Father Emperor was in poor health and wouldn't live much longer anyway. As for the Empress, I paid my respects to her. Daily tampering with things wasn't difficult. You're insane. If not for the Empress, you would have died long ago. How else could you have lived all these years? If it weren't for her jealous nature, how would my mother have died from fear? How would I have been bullied to the point of barely surviving since childhood? She claimed to treat me the same as the Crown Prince, but in reality, she only made me his dog, making me obey him in everything. Since she loves the Crown Prince so much, wouldn't it be nice if I sent her to keep him company? Hishu roared, his eyes chilling, as if he could go mad at any moment. He Shu's mother was a palace maid serving the Empress, who climbed into the Emperor's bed while the Empress was pregnant. When the Empress found out, she went into premature labor from the shock. Although she gave birth to the Crown Prince, her body was damaged, making it difficult for her to conceive again. To appease the Empress, the Emperor wanted to dispose of the palace maid. Instead, it was the Empress who, bound by their master-servant relationship, pleaded for the maid's life and let her stay in the palace. She even took the initiative to request a title for her when she discovered the maid was pregnant. However, the maid had a difficult birth, and after giving birth to He Shu, she passed away. The Empress naturally took He Shu in as her adopted son. In my dream, having been married to He Shu for 10 years, I never realized that he held no gratitude toward the Empress, only hatred. Not wanting to provoke him further, I stopped speaking. The air fell silent, so quiet that one could hear the wind blowing against the gauze curtains outside. After some time had passed, He Shu calmed down a bit and continued. Originally, I thought she adopted me because she could no longer bear children and wanted more kids for extra security. So after the Crown Prince died, I went to her palace every day to pay my respects, hoping she would treat me the way she treated the Crown Prince, but she didn't appreciate it at all, and always suspected there was something fishy about the Crown Prince's death. How could I let her live? She always said I was filial, so I showed her filial piety one last time. I sent her a specially made calming incense, letting her go meet the Crown Prince in her sweet dreams. Madman. I couldn't help but curse out loud. He wasn't angry but laughed instead, gripping my chin again and looking me in the eyes. So what? Even if I'm a madman, I'm still your husband, for the rest of our lives. We'll remain entangled with each other. He paused for a moment, then continued. Ningxi, my feelings for you are real, but I do fear your father and brother's power. As long as you convince your father-in-law and brother to retire from military service after I ascend the throne, I promise our child will be the Crown Prince. As for Liu Yuan, she has done me favors, and I can't be ungrateful, but I won't indulge her anymore. I'll give her the rank of noble lady to repay her kindness, and that will be the end of it. Listening to his delusional words, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. He Shu immediately became furious, but before he could lash out, hurried footsteps came from outside. The voice arrived before the person. A Shu, you can't marry her. You can't marry her. Liu Yun rushed in, shouting in panic. She is a fraud. A Shu. She is a fraud. She made you gravely ill and even killed me. The Crown Prince isn't your son. He is. An arrow flew past her cheek and embedded itself in the pillar beside He Shu. Liu Yun froze in place, eyes wide open, her crazed words cut off mid-sentence, not daring to speak further. He Shu was also stunned, and the hand gripping me instantly lost its strength. I seized the opportunity to break free from his restraints, rushing toward the door and throwing myself at Xiao Huai. He Shu came back to his senses and glared at me furiously. Is what a Yun said true? Without waiting for my answer, he pressed on with bloodshot eyes. Whose son is the Crown Prince exactly? Has the third prince lost his mind? The Crown Prince is naturally His Majesty's legitimate son, your eldest imperial brother. I waited until Xiao Huai helped untie my ropes before turning to face He Shu. There was an accident on the wedding procession route. Someone was injured, but it wasn't the Crown Prince. I think there are some things that require your highness to explain personally. Then I pointed at the bridal sedan that Xiao Huai had ordered to be carried in and continued. The wrong sedan was brought. Your bride is over there. Xiao Huai held me and turned to leave, but He Shu rushed in front of me like the wind. Fearing I would be harmed, Xiao Huai stepped in front of me first to shield me. He wanted to fight Xiao Huai, and Xiao Huai was also eager to engage husband. Today is not a good day to act. I timely held Xiao Huai's hand and soothed him. We're newlyweds. It is an auspicious time. Let's not delay things over something not worth it. Hishu became even angrier, his gaze terrifying. Seeing that he wouldn't give up, the crown prince stepped out from the corner, his expression imposing, no longer showing the gentle demeanor he once had when meeting Hishu. With just one look from him, the guards immediately stepped forward and restrained. Hishu was unconvinced. The events from the dream hadn't happened yet. He had committed no crime, but the crown prince, thanks to Xiaohuai's warning, had avoided today's assassination, caught the traitor, and personally heard Hishu's arrogant words. He might not fully trust Xiaohuai, but he would no longer let Hishu do as he pleased. He finally understood that my willingness to be brought to the prince's residence today was a scheme from start to finish. He glared at me again, the fury in his eyes seeming ready to burst out, but I no longer wished to explain anything to him. After bidding farewell to the crown prince, I left the third prince's residence. When I returned to the residence, the guests had all dispersed, and only my elder brother was still waiting. Brother, with my husband here, plus the residence's guards, and the crown prince's personal guards following, nothing could have gone wrong. Even though I returned safely, my brother was still shaken, opening his mouth but saying nothing. My husband and I haven't completed the wedding ceremony yet. With father absent, please be our witness. Brother, in the end, with my brother as witness, Xiaohuai and I completed the wedding ceremony. Xiaohuai carried me back to the room, lifted the bridal veil, and we drank the nuptial wine. Before I could react, he lowered his head and kissed my lips. The taste of wine lingered between our lips and teeth, making me dizzy. After what felt like an eternity, Xiaohuai released me, his gaze deep, complex, yet affectionate. Ever since I told him about the dream, he had been preoccupied all the way until today. He couldn't understand why he could allow me to marry Hishu without any reaction, why he waited 10 years before appearing by my side. I didn't know how to comfort him, so I took the initiative to kiss his lips, his face, and whispered in his ear, "Husband, whether in the dream or now, the one who stays by my side in the end is you. Today is our wedding night. Do you really want to waste this precious time over something that doesn't exist?" The soft, gentle breath brushing against his ear finally dispelled his doubts. His eyes burned bright, igniting with passion, as he carried me toward the bed, a night of wild abandon. The days after marriage were peaceful yet sweet. Xiaohuai came home early every day after work. Even when teased by colleagues about being henpecked, he didn't care at all. Half a month later, I heard news about Hishu. He was under the crown prince's surveillance day and night, stripped of his freedom, unable to contact his accomplices, and with Lu Yun constantly nagging in his ear about the dream, he completely lost his temper. He accidentally hurt Lu Yun and blamed all his misfortunes on her. Lu Yun was furious about this and voluntarily confessed to the crown prince that Hishu had been stockpiling weapons outside the city. After investigation, the crown prince indeed found an unregistered armory and used this to accuse Hishu of treason. The emperor was enraged and threw Hishu into prison. Hishu not only refused to plead guilty, but also clamored to see me. He was still a prince, so the messenger quickly found their way to the Shao residence. Hishu wore prison clothes, his hair disheveled, his whole body filthy, not a trace of his former dignity and authority. When he saw me, he was first pleasantly surprised, then looked at me as if seeing an enemy. Shen Ningxi explained this to me clearly, whose son is the crown prince. Exactly, his words came out of nowhere, startling the jailer, who hadn't had time to leave. Whose son is he, exactly? He asked again, this time roaring it out. Footsteps retreated in disorder, and only after all the jailers had left did I speak. The crown prince's birth mother had a lover before entering the palace. Whether the child is yours or not, I don't know either. However, less than a year after you left, the crown prince died at Liu Yun's hands. What is the point of arguing about his birth? My words made Liu Yun, sitting in the corner, freeze. She looked up in terror, first at me, then at the enraged He, and explained in a panic. It wasn't like that. She told me the crown prince wasn't your son and wouldn't be filial to me in the future. I went to the crown prince to verify and accidentally pushed him down the stairs, and before he could finish speaking, He had already grabbed Liu Yun by the throat. Veins bulged on the back of his hand as he squeezed so hard that Liu Yun couldn't make a single sound. Just then, He's bride rushed out and shoved him away with all her strength, finally allowing Liu Yun to catch her breath. She really did tell me that she lost her child and she wouldn't allow you to have any more children. Besides, there are so many people in the harem, and none of them got pregnant. So that is why the first thing Liu Yun did after being saved was still to defend herself, until the bride slapped her across the mouth, and only then did she quiet down. The bride was a wealthy young lady named Lu Ruyao. She had once caught a glimpse of Xiaohui by chance, and from then on, love took deep root in her heart. She had conspired with He to switch brides, hoping to get what she wanted. She never expected that she would end up throwing herself into prison as well. She looked at the enraged He and the already terrified Liu Yun and spoke with indignation. I don't understand all this talk about dreams. I just want to know I haven't been entered into the imperial registry, nor have I completed the wedding ceremony. I shouldn't be implicated. When can I get out? Neither of them could give her an answer. She turned to me. Miss Shen, I know it was wrong of me to conspire with the third prince to switch brides, but my crime doesn't warrant death. Could you please plead on my behalf, or pass a message to my father and have him come rescue me? In my dream I had seen her too. She had pursued Xiaohui bitterly for years, but he remained unmoved. It wasn't until Xiaohui entered the palace and was reviled by the world that she finally gave up. She took in a live-in son-in-law and expanded her business across the land. Whenever there was a war, she would donate money and supplies. She was a famous businesswoman and a well-known philanthropist far and wide. We're not really enemies in the true sense. After I return, I'll send a letter to your residence. Liu Rujiao thanked her gratefully, then retreated to the corner, sitting on a haystack with her eyes closed to rest, clearly uninterested in the entanglements between the three of us. In the gap where no one spoke, the air suddenly fell silent. Hishu's gaze shifted from confusion back to anger. He strode up to Liu Yun and clamped his hand around her neck again. The crown prince is my son. I had him acknowledge you as his mother, planning a way out for you, yet you repay kindness with enmity. He is only 4 years old. If you treat him well, how could he not be filial to you in the future? This time, before Liu Rujiao could step in to save her, the sound of a neck snapping was heard, crisp and piercing. Liu Yun's eyes instantly became unfocused, devoid of life. Hishu looked incredulously at his palm that still seemed to carry Liu Yun's body warmth, somewhat dazed. However, this daze lasted only a moment before he returned to normal. He quickly walked to the cell bars, pleading urgently with me. Ningxi, it was all her. She used her past favor to demand repayment, which is why I indulged her time and again. If she hadn't constantly brought up how she saved me when we were children, I wouldn't have cared about her. Now that she is dead, I won't be constrained by her anymore. As long as you agree, have your father and brothers help me raise an army. Once I obtain the throne, I'm willing to leave the harem empty for you. Hishu, at this point, do you really think I can still be fooled? I coldly shattered his fantasy. You killed my 2 children, and I only took your 1 life. This time, I originally wanted to cut ties with you completely, never to be involved again. But you just had to come provoke me. Since that is the case, I'll just have to take a bit more revenge. He Shu was at a loss for words, his lips trembling, and it took him a long while before he spoke. So, what Ayun said was true. My old illness relapsing was your doing, and her falling out with the crown prince was also your manipulation. I neither confirmed nor denied, sneering in response. Who told you to be so devoted, insisting on taking that arrow for Liu Yun? If not for that arrow, my plan would have been delayed by many years. He Shu was furious beyond words, but unfortunately, he couldn't reach me, and could only rage in place. The arrow-blocking incident happened a year before He Shu died of illness. At that time, I was practicing archery at the martial arts grounds, and Liu Yun insisted on tagging along. She went on about He Shu's favor toward her, and about how pitiful I was. I had no interest in playing the jealousy game with her, so I casually picked up an arrow and threatened her. He Shu loves you so dearly. If I accidentally shot an arrow through your heart today, would he kill me to avenge you? Liu Yun was terrified, slowly backing away. Just as she was about to retreat out of the martial arts grounds, He Shu appeared. She acted as if she had seen her savior, throwing herself into He Shu's arms to pour out her grievances. At the same time, my arrow shot through the air, scaring Liu Yun until her face turned pale. He Shu caught the arrow with his bare hands, and in his shock, he cursed me as a venomous woman, not even noticing the blood flowing from his hand. He confined me to my quarters and revoked my Empress seal and turbao. He let Liu Yun overstep her bounds again and again, snatching away items sent to Weiyang Palace. It wasn't until his old illness flared up and he was beyond cure that I regained my freedom. Have you never wondered why, with my father and brothers commanding powerful armies, I was willing to endure humiliation and turn myself into a laughingstock? I smiled at He Shu and slowly explained, because from the moment I knew you used me and didn't hesitate to kill my child, I only wanted you dead. That arrow was coated with an herb that, when combined with a specific fragrance, causes physical weakness and is especially prone to triggering old ailments. And every item Liu Yun snatched from me was coated with that fragrance. You truly are a venomous woman. And to think I even promised you a next life. He Shu's eyes were about to split open with rage, looking at me as if his gaze were laced with poison. Who wants that? I only wanted us to be strangers, yet who knew I'd run into you again? I was furious too. He Shu, you can only blame your own insatiable greed, wanting everything, harming others and yourself. I told you I originally planned for us to be even, but you refused. So let's settle accounts properly. How will you repay this second life? Before I finished speaking, He Shu had already retreated in terror, backing all the way to the innermost corner of the cell. Rest assured, you are still a prince for now, so I won't make a move so openly. However, you've already become a thorn in the Crown Prince's side. Even if you can get out of this prison, your fate won't be good. Wouldn't it be easier to act then? With that, I no longer looked at his terrified eyes and turned to walk toward the prison door. Walking out of the prison, sunlight instantly poured down, warm, dispelling the cold dampness from my body. Xiao Huai was waiting at the entrance, removing the cloak from my body and replacing it with a new one. His movements were gentle, his gaze earnest. Husband, are you angry that I came to see him? Sitting in the carriage, I nestled in his arms and asked softly, while also making my stance clear. I came to see him only to make him feel worse. I promise, this is the last time I'll never see him again. Xiao Huai gently kissed my forehead, smiling without a word. This smile was somewhat different from usual, yet I couldn't quite tell what was different. It wasn't till nightfall, when I returned to my room after reviewing the account books, that I understood where the difference lay. The candlelight was dim. Xiao Huai was lightly dressed, his collar half open. Dream and reality overlapped. I suddenly widened my eyes, and my face instantly flushed red. Xiao Huai embraced me and whispered in my ear, in the dream, it was truly hard work for my wife to teach me. Now how about I teach my wife? Though it was a question, he didn't give me a chance to speak. Another night of indulgence. Time flew by quickly, and soon it was the end of the year. Father returned to the capital to report on his duties and recommended his deputy general to take over his position. The emperor agreed. Meanwhile, Xiao Huai officially took up the position of city defense camp commander and no longer went to the border. His elder brother abandoned martial arts for literature and became a civil official. The tragedy of her father and brother dying on the battlefield in her dreams would never repeat itself. Shortly after the Lantern Festival, He Shu's sentence was also finalized. The evidence of treason was irrefutable, his princely status was stripped, and he was exiled 1,000 miles away. Although Liu Ruojiao was not entered into the imperial genealogy, the wedding had already taken place, and she was the emperor's personally bestowed princess consort, so she was to be exiled together with him on the day the verdict was received. He Shu, who had been living in terror day after day, completely lost his mind. Wailing from his mouth, his movements crazed and demonic. He repeatedly shouted and asked, "Is the crown prince dead? Is the emperor dead? When will he ascend the throne and become emperor?" The jailers, hearing these treasonous words and fearing being implicated, rushed forward to pin him down, trying to gag his mouth and bind his hands and feet. The rough handling briefly brought He Shu back to reality. He looked around blankly at the cold, dim prison cell, let out a low laugh. Then the laughter grew louder, echoing throughout the entire prison. The jailers, not understanding why, stopped what they were doing. Just as everyone was stunned, He Shu broke free from their restraints and shouted, "Since I can start over, then I'll do it all over again." With that, he slammed his head into the wall. Blood flowed freely, and he fell silent on the spot. When news of He Shu's death reached the palace, it had become a different version. It was said that he wept bitterly in repentance, overwhelmed with guilt, and died by ramming his head into a pillar. Before his death, he left a letter of divorce, hoping the emperor would show mercy and release Liu Ruojiao. The emperor remained silent for a long while, then granted his request and ordered the crown prince to leave the palace to preside over the funeral. When the news spread through the streets, I was strolling with Xiao Huai, picking out gifts for our unborn child. Thinking I wouldn't want to hear anything about He Shu, he naturally covered my ears. I took his hand and explained softly, "It is just gossip. Even if I don't hear it today, I'll find out eventually. Besides, why bother with things that go in one ear and out the other?" Once he was certain I truly didn't care about He Shu, his expression, his features were handsome and gentle, like a spring breeze, impossible to look away from. "Miss Shen." Liu Ruojiao's voice suddenly came from behind, diverting my gaze from admiring the beauty before me. She was much thinner than when I saw her in prison. Behind her followed a man, capable and upright, like the live-in son-in-law from my dream. She glanced at Xiao Huai, then looked back at me. In the past, I was stubborn and paranoid, did wrong things, and caused trouble for you both. I've come today specifically to apologize and ask for your forgiveness. As she spoke, she took an exquisite box from the person behind her and handed it to me. "This is a small token I've prepared for you two, an apology gift, a thank you gift, and also a congratulatory gift. I wish you both harmony and happiness, loving each other until your hair turns white." I didn't refuse reaching out to accept it. "Thank you, and congratulations in advance to Boss Liu. May your business flourish and wealth flow in." Apart from that time in prison, this was our second meeting, so we weren't exactly familiar with each other. After the polite pleasantries, she turned and left, and Xiao Huai and I continued picking out gifts. We looked at the same piece of fine jade. It felt warm to the touch, carrying a gentle, subtle warmth. I held the jade, and he held my hand. We left the shop and walked straight ahead. The bustling noise of the street drowned out the silence from my dreams. The curling cooking smoke swept away the illusions from my dreams. Walking upon the reality of this mortal world, this time we would live a complete life together. Now, if I were to capture the soul of this story in 2 phrases, they would be the dignity of indifference and correction, not revenge first. The dignity of indifference. Ningxi teaches us that true power isn't about screaming at your enemies. It is about not needing them. He, Shu, expected anger, tears, jealousy. Instead, he got nothing. She treated him like a stranger, a passerby. By denying him her emotion, she starved his ego and drove him mad. It turns out the worst thing you can do to a narcissist is simply not care. Second, correction, not revenge. This isn't just a revenge story, it is a correction story. Ningxi doesn't spend her second life obsessed with killing. He Shu, though she certainly helps karma along. She spends it fixing her mistakes, saving her family, marrying the right man, living the life she was meant to have. She realizes that her happiness is the best revenge. He Shu dies alone in a cell, screaming at ghosts, while she strolls through the market, holding hands with her true love. And so what you learn that sometimes the best way to win the game is to stop playing by the old rules and start a new game entirely. If watching Shen Ningxi trade a chaotic emperor for a devoted general warmed your heart, as it did mine, please do press that like button. It helps our stories travel further than a fast horse. Subscribe for more tales of destiny rewritten, and tell me in the comments, would you have fed the spirit herb to the cats, or would you have done something even more creative? Until we meet again, may your umbrellas keep you dry and your choices keep you free. Farewell.